All right, so I want to say, so what are principles?
Morals.
Kind of. Kind of. Not really. Kind of. Principles are rules that we live by. It could be your morals. It could be lots of things. They're mathematical principles. In other words, they're not just things that we. It's not just our views. It's things that we believe to be true. So we believe these things to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a principle. It says that there's a whole bunch of things going on in there. We believe these things to be self-evident. In other words, they're true. They don't even need to be argued. We don't have to present a long argument in this case. That all men are created equal. Boom, that's it. So because of that, what follows from that are these other things that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So those things all have to follow from the idea that we're all created equal. So there's a principle that there's a Creator, and that Creator created us, and He created all of us to be equal. And because we're equal, we all share these certain rights. Now, if you go back from there and say, well, there's no Creator, that undoes everything. Because then there's a question of, well, why should I have to respect you? Why should I not be allowed to enslave you? Why should I not be allowed to kill you? Why should I not be allowed to steal from you? The only reason for any of that is the idea that we're created equal. So therefore, because we're created equal, there's no allowance for you to place yourself above other people. It's only because we're created and that we're created equal that any of those rights start to make sense. It's a principle. It's a truth. There's kind of a moral aspect to it, but it's a thing that people took to just be self-evidently true. And so because of that principle, and if you believe in that principle, you would live your life very differently than if you don't believe in that principle. And so we can start to think about what our principles really are. I don't know what your principles are. I don't know that you have very many principles. And I mean that because I haven't really talked to you about this kind of a thing before. Are there certain truths that you hold to be self-evident, things that guide your life? If so, what are some of them? Or what might they be from somebody else, even if not you? I just gave you one example. Yeah.
Don't kill yourself for others.
Don't kill yourself for others. Why not?
Because it's your life. You matter, and you matter much more than everyone else does because it's your life. You know, you're not supposed to be sacrificing yourself for others. Yes, that makes you selfless, but it's, you should value your own life.
But do you see the problem with that statement, though? You matter, and what was the follow-up?
Nobody else does.
Nobody else does. So therefore, the only person who matters is the person speaking this sentence. So if that's the case, then you matter, and nobody else does. In that case, I matter, and nobody else does. The problem is we're in the same room. It's contradictory. So it's that second part that makes it, that violates itself. In other words, it can't be a principle because it violates itself. In other words, it can't be true. It has to be something that's true. That's part of what it is for it to be a principle. Now, if instead you made this categorical, you say everybody matters, or in other words, you could keep that word "you matter" because anybody who's hearing the sentence can adopt it as a truth. It's that second part, nobody else does, that violates it as a principle. Because that nobody else does contradicts this first part. You follow? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So now, if you matter, and if it turns out that that is true, well now we can start to see what flows from that. So if you matter, and if you really do believe that, if that really is one of your principles, then and you keep it very, very broad like that, then that means that you matter, but the thing is now, so does everybody else. So because you matter, you might say, therefore, you must be kind to yourself. And I won't get into necessarily what that means. We'll just presuppose that we all know what this means, to be kind to oneself. But that means that therefore you must also be kind to self and others. And you must be kind to others just as much as to yourself. You don't prioritize yourself over others. Because if it's true that everybody matters, then everybody matters. If it's true that not everybody matters, then understand what you're doing. If you don't believe that precept, then what you're doing is you're placing some people above others. I hope, therefore, you don't get pissed off when people treat you like gum on the bottom of the shoe. I hope you're not that person who complains about people being mean to others, or people being racist towards others, or people being sexist towards others, or any other ism or isp you want to put in there for 2022. Because if you don't buy this, that everybody is this way, well then you have no cause to complain that people treat you lesser. And if you do buy this, then you have no right to live as though you are somehow better than others. That means telling other people how to live, which of course might even violate this. But the point is that if you buy that, a whole bunch of other things flow from there. So now, you must be kind to yourself and kind to others. So now you got to figure out, what does it mean to be kind to yourself? What does it therefore mean to be kind to others? And these have to be in equal proportion. You cannot be kinder to yourself than others. You can't be kinder to others than yourself. And for a lot of people, this is a difficult thing to walk. It's easy for some people to be really nice to themselves. I see it. I see some people who are fantastic at making excuses for themselves and are really harsh towards others. I've seen a lot of people who are very harsh towards themselves and yet are very forgiving towards others. And so it's difficult to now be in equal balance between these two things. Be understanding of others. Also be understanding of yourself. Provide for yourself. Also provide for others. Yeah, do nice things for yourself, but also do nice things for others. And that all flows from this whole thing of this one principle of you matter. And if we take that to be a truth, then you have to follow that truth to the same extent that you would follow something like the principle of gravity. Because it's a constant in the universe. You believe it's true, so therefore you live by it. These are really hard things for people to identify, first off, because you have to really think about it. And then you have to figure out why it is that you think this to be a principle. And a lot of times we say, it's my principle that, I don't know, family matters. Or family before everything. That's a very tribal. And understand that if you hold that view, which is fine, but understand that if you hold that view, you're setting up a world of conflict. Because if you hold this view and everybody holds this view, so for example, everyone could hold this view, and I think we could imagine that the world would be a better place if everybody universally held this view. If everybody universally held the view, my family matters, my family above everything else, then that means that your family and 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 my family, we're all at war constantly, and we're only going to be nice to each other when it benefits us, because that means that, my family above everybody else. So therefore, I don't treat you the same as everybody. I treat everybody else lesser than here. And that creates a world of conflict. It becomes very difficult now. Look at the world now. This is not, when we have a world of warring countries or warring tribes or whatever, that's where it comes from. This idea of my group above everybody else's group. So I'm not saying that you can't have that as a principle. I'm just saying it's difficult to have a world without conflict with that kind of principle. And so it might be worthwhile to think about what our principles are. Some people might have a principle of freedom, and I don't exactly know what that means when people say it. Does that mean freedom to do what I want, or does that mean freedom from consequence or responsibility? Or does that mean freedom of thought? I don't know. So I can put a question mark there. I might say I have a principle of autonomy. Autonomy means you have control over yourself. You have the right to determine your own life. You have the right to determine your own principles. You have the right to determine what you say and hear and so forth. So maybe that's a principle that you can live by. But then again, you have to see where it comes, how it extrapolates. This is why we say people of principles are so hard to shake. Because if you hold this truth to be self-evident, if this is something that you absolutely believe, it's very difficult now for someone to get you to do something that violates that. Because you don't just hear it and say, that sounds good on a poster. I think I'm gonna retweet that. Instead, it's something that you sit there and say, my life is guided by this. Without this, my life loses a big chunk of its meaning. In other words, without this, it's kind of like I have a compass, and this is the thing that this is a big part of my life's compass. It tells me where to go. If you take away that compass, I now don't know where to go. I don't know how to live my life. This is a big part of it. So no, I won't be mean to that person. Well, what if we're going to kill you? Then I guess you're going to kill me. He wants to die a slave to his principles. He wants to die for the things that he believes in. Not to die for other people, but he wants to die for the things that he believes in. You might believe in the same things as other people. This is true. You might not believe in the same things as other people. You might not have the same principles. In fact, I think what you're going to find is that very few people have principles. This is why our morals are so fluid. This is why if I ask a question like, is it okay to lie? Well, it depends. Does it? It depends on what? And you'll find that a lot of times what it depends on is, excuse me, what it depends on is it going to benefit me somehow? Like, does this dress make me look fat? It's okay to lie in that circumstance because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Is it because you don't want to hurt? Why don't you want to hurt someone's feelings? Is it because you know there's going to be consequences on you if you hurt their feelings? It's going to make you feel bad? Or it's going to make them mad at you? Is it really about the other person's feelings, or is it about yourself? You just don't want to feel guilty and feel bad. Would you want people lying to you for the same reasons? My guess is the principle probably is more like, I want to be able to lie when it benefits me and not be lied to. That's all. That's probably what that's not really a principle, because it's not something that you can apply universally. It's not something that you can actually live by in some meaningful way, such that it can guide your life like the compass I was saying. And so, figuring out what your principles are, they help you to live a principled life. And it's phenomenal that it sounds so rigid and difficult, and it is. That's why we admire people like Emiliano Zapata, because this is a person who has principles. This is a person who believes in something, a person who stands for something. This is a person who's not just pushed around by whims and feelings and context. This is a person that if you go to him, this is a person who you probably, once you understand his principles, once you understand what he stands for, you probably don't even have to ask him what he thinks about things. You probably already know what he thinks about things. And you can trust it. You can rely on it. If you have a person whose principle is, they're not going to lie, you can go to them and ask them a question, and you can trust that you're going to get the truth every time. You have to sit there and be like, are you telling me the truth? Now, people will still do that, because it's so hard to believe that people have principles. If you don't have principles, it's really hard, really, really hard for you to believe that other people have principles. If you believe it's okay to lie to everybody, you probably think everyone's lying to you. But of course, what does that mean, therefore? It means that you're living a life where you're going to lie to people, and people are just not going to trust you. You're going to lose a lot of opportunities in life. People are not going to like you. People aren't going to trust you because as good of a liar as you think you are, people know. People know when you're full of shit. People also know when you're authentic. Not everybody knows. It's like when you guys lied to your teachers, can I go drink water? Can I go to the bathroom? Do you really think we think you're doing that? Do you really think that we don't know that you're meeting up with somebody in the building back here? Do you really think that other teachers and people don't tell us what, oh, I saw one of your students, I saw this, saw that? You know anything we don't know? Or do you think that we just don't think it's worth it to chase you down because we're not your parents? Maybe that's really what it is, perhaps? Oh, no, you're just really slick at your age. You're just so much smarter than everybody else. No. It's difficult because you think you're getting away with it. And it creates a false world in your head in which now you are above other people because you're so damn smart. When what it really is that, why not? I'll just say it. We just don't care enough to correct you because we're not your parents. I don't have time to run around. I mean, really, when we're sitting in when you guys see me at my desk, you can come over and look at any moment and see what I'm working on. I'm always working in here. I am constantly working in here. Am I constantly sending articles and things and ideas? I am always working in here. That's why it annoys me when people are like, ah, shut up, stupid. I'm actually doing something over here. And, oh, sorry. Are you really? That's okay to you? To behave like that anywhere? If your parents were sitting right here, would you still do that? If so, then I can understand the problem is with your parents, not with you. It's how you were raised. Fine, I get it. But it doesn't serve you, it doesn't benefit you. It makes you worse off, it disrupts the place around you. And it stops other people from being productive. It makes the world a worse place. So, do you think that when I'm over there working, why aren't I walking around? Come on, get to work. Come on, you can just, man, imagine what my day would look like if every time one of my students was doing something wrong, I stopped class to fix it. Those of you in here who actually are trying to get something out of it, how much would you possibly ever get out of it? you wouldn't have time. Because every couple of seconds I'd be having to stop what we're doing, stop instructing, stop developing stuff, stop perfecting ideas for the people who aren't really even trying. You know? I said the tragedy of it is that you think you get away with it, which means that you think you're smarter than you are. And then you progress through life, and you think you're smarter than everybody else. And then you find yourself stymied in life, not going anywhere later on. And you're thinking, oh man, the world's so unfair. No, the world just caught up with you, man. The world just caught up with you. That's all it is. And you're right, the world isn't necessarily fair because you will get away with it for a while. You're right. But it's not unfair in the direction you think it is. It's unfair in the sense that it will benefit you to get away with this stuff for a while. Please understand, I'm not telling you this to chastise you. I'm not even telling you this because I think it's going to change anybody. I'm just telling you this because it's one of my principles to tell you the truth. Even when everybody else around you is going to be, don't worry, things are going to be fine. You are perfect just the way you are. No. And it's patronizing. Is anybody in here like, genuine? Don't raise your hands or anything like that, but just think to yourself, is anybody in here really perfect just the way you are? Anybody in here think, I'm just fantastic as I am? No, you know that you're not. And it's bad when people come along and tell you that you are because it conflicts with what you know to be the truth. And if maybe it placates you maybe it placates you because now you can feel like what they're saying is true, but you know it's not. So now what it does is it reinforces the idea in your head that people are full of shit. Everybody lies. No one can tell you the truth. Therefore, it's okay for me to deceive because everybody else does. But then, of course, when one person comes along and tells you the truth, they're the asshole, right? But you know that they're not. So, I don't know. Maybe that's the job of the philosopher. What good is a philosopher who doesn't offend people? So whatever your principles are, understand it can make you unpopular. Right now, I don't think I'm probably the most popular person in the room. But that's a principle of yours, and you're willing to live and die by it because you hold it to be so important to your very existence. Tell the truth, because the truth is the very thing that sets you free. It's the only thing in the universe that actually remains. Everything else, all the bullshit, all the lies, all the untruths, all the misinformation, that's all going to go away because nothing beats reality. Reality is true. It's truth. You might say, oh, but people can lie and people can shape the past. The truth comes out. It always does. In the grand scheme of things, truth always wins. Do you want to be on the side of truth? Or do you want to be on the short-sighted side of thinking that you're getting away with stuff because you think we are meeting up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend behind this 600 building? Would you rather die for the things that are true, or would you rather die for the things that other people want you to live by? And by the way, that's a real choice. And I don't think it's an obvious answer. However, I'm stating it right now, I don't think it's an obvious answer for most people. Most of us, it's so much easier to not have principles. It really is, in the short term. But you're going to die, eventually. Maybe not for your principles, but it will be interesting to see what people think about you after you're dead. Not what they say about you, because death makes angels of us all. In other words, when you die, people are going to say, they were so wonderful, they're so great. And then someone's going, not really, shut up, don't talk badly about the dead. But everyone's thinking the same thing. What a piece of shit who's in that box right now. No. At least let it be true. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticism, critiques? Happy Thursday, man.